Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Brian Hayes, Frankie Corrado. We've got Sean Monahan later in the hour, Bruce Boudreau coming up. We're going to do our top 50 audit here, right? We're going to audit the top 50 of TSN's, top 50 hockey players or NHL players, projecting last season what it was going to be. And we're going to take that list and look ahead to next year and say, are we going to go up? Are we going to go down? Are we going to stay around the same? Jays played this afternoon. They lost. They dropped 3 of 4 against Houston. And Vladdy Jr., I guess, was speaking after the game. Scott Mitchell just tweeting out. Vladdy was asked about, the likelihood of an extension, the trade deadline, his future with the Blue Jays, kind of all purposed together. What does he make of it all? And Vladdy said, quote, "Man, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here all my life, but this is a business," end quote. Adds that he doesn't think about money, which I think every guy said. No, I don't think about money at all. He said, quote, "My time is going to come. I don't know if it's too soon or not, but it's going to come," end quote. So that's a different tone and a different stance than what Bichette gave us a week ago, where, Bo was probably a different line of questioning, but Bo was asked if he'd be surprised if he was dealt between now and the trade deadline, and Bo said no, he wouldn't be surprised at all. And I guess Vladdy is, also admitting to what is a truth and what I think we all have to acknowledge. It is a business, and he wants to get paid regardless of what he says. Vladdy's got value and he values himself and he's a proud guy and he wants to get paid. And I'm sure he knows that and the Blue Jays know it. But that's going to play well here in Toronto. The idea you putting it on the line saying you don't want to leave, you want to stay here your whole life, that people chew that stuff up. Yes. Chew it up. It's a brilliant play, I think, by Vladdy.
People love to hear that. That's the way to go with the fans. I am curious, though, when he says, it's not about the money, but it's a business. Does that mean that there's going to be a business decision above him to say we're just going to move on? We want new faces. We want to acquire assets. Is that kind of what he's hinting at? Is that what I'm getting there?
My read on that is it's a business is him suggesting the Jays could trade him.
Yes.
Right? That's my read on it. Him saying he doesn't want to leave, he wants to stay here, but it's a business is, there's only so much I can do. He doesn't have 10 and 5 rights. It's not like he's in a situation where he has a no move, no trade, and he can kind of demand where he's going to go. If they want to flip him, they can flip him. And he's only got a year left on his contract. But that would be my interpretation is basically go ask Ross and Shapiro. Go figure out what their plan is and ownership's plan, because he said he doesn't think about money. That doesn't mean money isn't a factor here. I mean,
you know who thinks about the money, Hayes? The agents.
Of course.
The agents think about the money. And as a player, you're always talking to the agent. What are they thinking? Where are they at with this? And if the agent's getting crickets, or if the agent's kind of getting, hey, we're not sure, I think that's where that last line comes in, where he's like, my time's going to come. I don't know if it's soon or down the road. If they're not getting any kind of reassurances that you're going to stay and we're going to keep you here long term, that's when your mind would start to wander and say, okay, maybe it is a business decision to move on, and it's not going to be about the money. It's just going to be about the team changing the guard.
Right, and it is, it's deeper and more complex than does this guy help you win, right? There's also a marquee element to it. There's a jersey sales element to it. He's the face of the franchise, and he has been basically since he arrived, right? As good as Bo's been at times, as substantial as that signing of George Springer was, you go back to bringing in, Hyunjin Ryu, bringing in, Gosman, Robbie Ray winning a Cy Young. There's been a number of different things that have happened here that have been substantial since Vladdy arrived. But he's been the guy. He is the guy. He is the face of the franchise. So we just saw ownership, by all accounts, give a green light to spend $700 million on Ohtani. And that was not just because he was going to help them win and lose. That was a marketing plan. That was about ticket sales. That was about marketing the company. Now, Vladdy does not have the same amount of weight that Shohei has, clearly. Not even close, and he never will. But in this town, the name Vladimir Guerrero Jr. rings out. It means something here. So I'm curious to see, what they do with Vladdy will probably determine a lot in terms of where this whole thing is going. Because as we talked about in the last hour, ownership has spent money. Like, they have spent money. This is not a cheap team. This is not a team that has not opened up the checkbook and allowed Atkins and Shapiro to go out there and spend. They've done that. And they should be disappointed because this team's a mess. You know, you're top 6 or 7 in payroll, and you're one of the 5 or 6 worst teams in the league. It doesn't add up. Any owner would go to their management team and say, "You explain how we got here,"
or fire or
fire
just say
them.
you're done. Like,
absolutely.
Why, how would you even get the explanation out at that point? You know, hey, we're giving you all this money. Team stinks. Can you explain yourself? It's
right.
Probably a little more like, hey, we gave you all this money. Team stinks. See you later. We're bringing in someone else now, and they're going to have to clean up your mess. And you know, you can say what you want about how Anthopoulos left the team. But at least that team was more competitive, and this team is nowhere near what that team was, and it's the same, aftermath after these guys leave.
Well, and what I'm saying here is with the Vladdy contract hanging over all that, that's what makes it even more complicated. Because if the owner's pissed that, and I don't know if they are or not, but I would assume they would be based on results. If you're rattled that you spent all this money and the team's not going anywhere, and let's say you're like, I got to get rid of the front office. At some point, you got to make a call on Guerrero Jr. Like, he's a free agent after next year. So that's what I'm pointing to. Like, the emotion in the room of what's happened with the team, how long these guys have had to figure out a World Series, championship, which they haven't been able to do and they're not going to do anytime soon. On top of it, a lot of money that clearly wasn't spent properly. You got to chew on all that and still probably think, I got to pay this guy a lot of money. But if you let Vladdy go, you really are resetting everything. Like, if Vladdy and Bichette go and Shapiro and Atkins go, it is square one, new world, new era in Toronto. Like, completely new plan, new vision, scorched earth. Team's going to be awful for years. And
that could be a decade. Hey, that could honestly be a decade. You could be the Pittsburgh Pirates or whoever. Like, you will have a different
Or you could
payroll.
be Baltimore in 7-8 years. Right?
You could be, but
could be.
So if you're ownership and you decide to let these guys make the call, which you would have final say on, and you say, we're moving off Vladdy, we're moving off Bichette, you going to give these guys the keys one more time to do a rebuild? No way.
No chance.
There's no way you give them another chance.
And they would have to. Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, they've been around baseball forever. Shapiro's a lifer. His dad was in the game. He knows you're not getting another run through, another 10-year plan or 5-year plan. Like, there's no way that it's not going to happen. But that's what, complicates everything. Wins, losses, marketability, ticket sales, how much time you've put into pumping up certain players. And on top of it, Vladdy, he's been really good lately, but he hasn't been great for a few years. Like, statistically, he's been a good to very good player. That's what he's been.
He is back this year,
Not a superstar.
Though.
He's been very good recently.
This year feels like more 2021 Vladdy.
Yeah, I mean, he hit 48 home runs, had an OPS up around 1,000. Yeah, he's not getting there this year.
Let's call it this. It's the best year he's had since then. Like, we can agree to that. Yes,
I'll give you that over the last month and a half. 2 months. Okay. Yes. I mean, he's still got half the season left. Right? Like, yes, he's trending that way. And if he ends up with 30-plus home runs, he's got 13 on the season right now. He's still on pace for under 30 home runs. So, he's got an OPS plus of 141. That's above his career numbers. His career OPS is 844. He has an 844 OPS on the season right now.
I guess when you're looking at, in contrast to how bad the season has been, when you look at the Vladdy story, it kind of just stands out and it's a little bit of a shining light. So maybe it glows a little bit more in contrast to how bad the season has been.
I agree with you. Listen, I think Vladdy, he didn't have a good start like the rest of them, but he has picked it up. To his credit, where Bichette hasn't been able to get up off the mat. Springer has a little bit recently. Kirk never has. There's been a number of guys who either started hot and tailed or just never got hot and never got hot. Vladdy at least snapped out of it, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And his numbers are very respectable right now. You'd still like to see some more power. But I think, if he gets to 25, 30 home runs and OPS up around 850 plus, that's those good numbers. Like, that's a good player. Is that $400 million? No. But it's worth something. and it's probably not worth moving off of. But who's going to make that call? Is it Atkins, Shapiro, Rogers, Vladdy? I don't know. But Vladdy's saying it today. He wants to stick around.
Well, does he sit around for 8 years and watch stuff kind of explode around him? Or does he go somewhere else, get the same money, and say, I actually got a chance to win now?
That's
I'm
a good
the
question.
Same money elsewhere.
Yeah, how do you pitch to players that you think you're really close to winning right now if you're in Toronto? It can't be easy to do. That's another element for sure. Sean Monahan later in the hour. Richard Griffin will join us. We'll do our TSN Top 50 audit. We'll get to that. But here's our good buddy Bruce Boudreau joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. How you doing, Bruce?
Well, don't start talking about the Blue Jays. You'll get me frustrated.
I know. Isn't this a challenge? It is tough to watch them every day.
You know what? I live in Hershey, but I have, I buy the baseball channel, so I watch the Blue Jays every night. And I feel like I'm a Leaf fan all over again because I get up and I just circle the table. I get so frustrated.
I know. It is really desperate times up here right now. It's desperate. And, we do mood checks on this show. We ask people all the time, what do you think would be going on in the clubhouse? And I'm sure you can use your own career as a player, as a coach. When it's ugly and the trade deadline's around the corner, like, it's got to be a pretty hostile environment at that point.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of guys either say, I want to go, I want to get traded to a contender, or they're worried about, they've settled down here, they got their house here, their kids maybe here, and they don't want to leave. So it's either way you look at it, it's very stressful on the individual.
So, Bruce, Barry Trotz, head coach, now he's a general manager. I'm curious, when you were the head coach, how many times did you go to George McPhee and say, make this move, make that move, I want this guy, I want that guy? And maybe he told you, no, we can't do it, we can't do this, we can't do that. It feels like Barry Trotz is doing all the stuff that the general manager told you when you were the head coach that you couldn't do. Get Stamkos, get Marchessault, get Brady Shea. Is that a real thing? Like, if you're the coach, you go to the GM and he kind of says, we can't do this, we can't do that, but it feels like Trotz is doing everything he wants to do.
Well, it depends on the relationship you have with the GM, I think, first of all. But, I mean, Barry was a coach. He knows. He you know what? I think that's why coaches would make good GMs, because they're on the ice. They know who's good. They know who's bad. They hear the stuff that the GMs don't hear up when they're just watching from up top. And I just think that makes Barry very in tune with what's going on around him. So, I mean, I think he's done a great job. I don't know if Ryan O'Reilly is telling him to go get Mitch Marner. Like, I mean, I'm sure everybody in the league would like to have Mitch Marner, and Ryan is talking about his character, and he's talking about how good a player he is because he's seen him close up. So Barry's probably listening. I don't know how many bullets he's got left in his gun after going through what he's did at free agency. There might not be much left there.
No kidding. With Bruce Boudreau, and it sounds as if Craig Berube, is excited to get a crack at the core in Toronto and the talent in Toronto, and I'm sure you can speak to that. And Craig said when he got here, and every coach says it. I don't know how true it can actually be, but they all say they're coming in with a blank canvas. Everything's a fresh start. Obviously he knows of the players. He's watched the tape. He's coached against them. He knows what they can and can't do on the ice. But the idea of Berube, his role in this and possibly advocating for all these guys to return because of how talented they are, and he wants to have a crack at maybe pushing them over the top. Can you reason with his thinking if that is the case?
Well, I really can, because I think it's a great team and it's a great group of forwards, and they've added to the defense, which I think in the short term, meaning 2 years or less, is gonna really help them. But Craig's going to be a completely different coach than O'Keefe was. Keith Sheldon was, because he's more defensive minded, he's more grind minded, he's more, and so I think like him, who wouldn't want a chance at those forwards? But just quickly getting back to your previous question, the one GM, when I did ask George the question, he said, who do we need? What do we need? I said, well, we really need a second-line center behind Backstrom. And he went out right away and got Fedorov for me, and which was great. You know, for 2 years we had one of the world's best players. And even if he was a little long in the tooth, he was still smart as could be and could play any position he asked him to. And I mean, the same thing with Chuck Fletcher. He asked me, what do we need? What do we need? And I told him I thought we needed a certain player. And the best player out there, I can't even remember his name, but we went and got him, but it didn't work. But I mean, as long as you guys are working together and trying to do the same thing, I think it has to be done. It's when the management doesn't pay any attention to what the coaches want and thinks that they can go and build the team by themselves and not knowing, you know, the temperature of the room and the temperature of the guys, that it becomes a little problematic.
Bruce, would the Leafs management owe it to Craig Berube to see if he could do something with the core four and Mitch Marner before thinking of trying to facilitate a trade? Like, is that something that would cross their mind? Listen, we made the coaching change. Let's see if that does anything before we make the move to trade someone or try and trade someone.
Yeah, I don't think the Leaf management owes it to anybody. They've went out and hired a guy that they think is going to be the guy that can get the job done. So I mean, with this team, they're not thinking, I don't think, that hey, listen, we're going to go hire Craig and then we're going to build the team around him. They've got their team. It's hard to make a lot of changes in today's hockey world, and they think Craig's the guy, and I think he's a great coach. Can, with a different style of play, can put this team beyond the first round.
With Bruce Boudreau, Frankie and I were doing a SportsCenter hit on Sidney Crosby and his future, and based on what I've seen online, it sounds as if people in Pittsburgh found it and weren't exactly happy with our stance. And, you know, it's 4th of July now. I guess we're technically 4 days into a period in which Sid could sign an extension with Pittsburgh. He's got a year left on his deal. Where do you see that one going? What's your read on Sid and the Penguins and his future?
Well, I'm speaking as a fan too, and just as a guy that's followed hockey his whole life, is you know, you might want to. He's one of those Mount Rushmore players type thing, or right very close to it, that might want to be with one team his whole career. But I think there was a number I heard the other day, and I'm probably way off, that players that have played over a certain amount of time in the NHL, there's only 18 of them that have spent all the time with the same team. So I mean, that's an awful lot of great players that have moved on. And like, I mean, the moves that Pittsburgh made, if I was Sid, I'd say, hey, I don't want this. I want to go to a team that can win, because Pittsburgh didn't do anything to help them or get them better for next year, I don't think.
Bruce, maybe you can help me fill in the blanks here, because Bryan and I were talking about Sasha Barkov and kind of where he would rank going into next year if we're doing our top 50 list. So Sasha Barkov is a top blank player in the NHL.
16th.
16.
I don't know.
Okay, I like it.
I mean, there's so many good players. I'd have to have the list in front of me, but he's a center you can win with, has been proven. He can score, and he can check, and he can play against the other team's best players all the time. Very similar to what Kopitar did, especially when he was younger with the Kings, and they won cups. You know, very the same as going even further back as Jean Beliveau, who was a big scoring center, but was also playing against everybody else. And, you know, I had Mikko Koivu. We never had the team that I don't think that Florida had, but he was the same kind of leader and captain and as such. And those guys are so hard to find. I mean, I don't know if I could put them in a top 10 or top 5. I'd have to sit down and think of all the players, but as I'm driving, he's definitely somebody you'd like to have as a starting gap for your team. I mean, I had Ryan Getzlaf was another one that was, again, a top 10 player in the league, because those big, strong centers that can play both ways are so hard to find.
No question about that. All right, Bruce, we'll leave it there, buddy. We appreciate you doing this. We'll do it again soon.
Okay, no more Blue Jay talk right now.
Yes.
I'm driving. I get too frustrated.
All right, 10 and 2 it, and just stop thinking about the Jays. Focus on the road.
Think about the Hershey Bears, Bruce. Another championship
there you
for
go.
the Hershey Bears.
Good thoughts. Yeah, good
Attaboy.
thoughts there.
All right, thank you, Bruce. There's Bruce Boudreau joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota, and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Yeah, the Jays can really get the blood pressure cooking, and Brucey's not happy, and nor should he be. But, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens here. You know, Craig Berube's approach, Crosby's approach, I'm sure you've seen online, like people in Pitt are just not happy with us, or me in particular. You said
I was going to say they're more
Me.
not happy with you because I
Yes.
took the position that he should be a Penguin for life.
Right. Yeah, it's more about me. And
But the
them not being
graphic, the graphic they used when they put that on Twitter, I don't think did us many favors because it was a Crosby picture and all the different logos of teams and a bunch of question marks. So
I love seeing it. Seeing it. And, you know, I listen, my guess would be he's going to play out this year. My guess would be he'll play there for a long, long time. But I also feel pretty confident that Pittsburgh is not competing for anything in the next 3 or 4 years. Like, I can't picture them putting the pieces together on the fly where it's going to work out for them. But that's up to Sid to figure it out. There it is up on
Time
TSN
for a
4.
change.
Time for a change.
Yeah,
Leaf
question
logo,
mark.
Habs, Colorado, Boston, Rangers, LA. Yeah, I can understand the sensitivity down there, but we'll see.
I told
because,
you, man. I mean, of course they do. It's
Of course,
Sidney
he's
Crosby,
the man
but
down
they're
there.
they're so passionate about Crosby, and why wouldn't they be? Like, that's, it's Mario into Crosby, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it goes into the next one at some point, somewhere down the road, but they would have to be bottoming out for that to happen.
You're talking generational, all-time great player. They're so lucky in Pitt. It's like just like in Edmonton. Like, they had Gretzky, and then, 20 years later, McDavid shows up.
They're lucky, but they also went. It was Hall, it was Nugent Hopkins, it was Yakupov. Like, keep throwing darts at the board.
But they kept winning, and they won the best one of them all.
I mean, you got enough tries at it, and you finally got McDavid, right? And then
it's
you
just
followed it up with
like
Draisaitl.
Gretzky, McDavid, Lemieux, Sid. It worked out incredibly well for both franchises. Anyway. All right, we got Sean Monahan coming up. We will do our top 50 audit. Kevin Kilbane will join us on the quarters at the Euros, Canada, Venezuela, and Copa America coming up tomorrow night. Get his take on that as well. And Richard Griffin will join us on Vladdy's comments today about wanting to stay in Toronto for the rest of his life. But it's a business. What does that mean? How does Griff interpret that? And what does this team possibly do? Because they're 9 games under 500, and it's seemingly getting worse by the day. So Griff will join us and help us break that down as well. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
So now that we're into the summer, Hazy, I know you're going to take a little time off somewhere down the road. Maybe one of those days you want to come on the show so I can introduce you as our guest and introduce you as Bryan Hayes, TSN Hockey Insider. Because apparently, down in the United States, you are being coined the Insider.
Right.
Based on your
my
theories
knowledge
on
of Sidney
Crosby.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw that. Insider Bryan Hayes. Meanwhile, if you watch the clip, it is blatantly opinion-based, like 100% opinion-based. But I'll take it. Why not? All the other insiders are on summer vacay. There seems to be a vacancy here. Yeah. I can step in. Yeah. I'm happy to step in on the inside. What can I scoop? I need a big scoop here.
You need the you need the Vladdy scoop.
Okay.
You need some kind of, you need the Marner trade scoop. If you get that, then you're truly an insider. But I love in the article, the person who wrote it, his theories on the trades that could happen for Sidney Crosby.
I didn't get a chance to read it, but I did see that I was labeled as an insider. So I have a great appreciation for that. I do fancy myself a journalist from time to time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's Big J journalism on the show. And listen, I guess, I don't know. It's not the first rodeo with Pittsburgh. You know, I went on Jay's show months ago, and one of my Harvey's hot takes was like, get sit out, and it just blew up.
Not the
online.
best.
Like blew up on Instagram and Twitter.
JP doesn't
and
like
YouTube.
it, apparently.
Yeah, JP, I guess he's a big Sid fan. I don't know. Maybe he's from Cole Harbor. Maybe I should know where JP's from. I assumed he was a Toronto guy, but maybe he's
You know
a
what
Cole
you
Harbor
need to
guy.
do? You know how some people, they go on like these retreats, they go get in touch with themselves, you know, spiritually.
Yeah.
Maybe you go out to Cole Harbor, Nova Scotia this summer. You know, you see where Sid's from. You see all the signage.
Beautiful out there. I'm very familiar with the East Coast.
Yeah, that's
familiar.
true. You are a big East Coast guy. That's
I
right.
went to school
forgot.
in Halifax.
Yeah,
I know
that's
what's
right.
up with Cole Harbor. I've been there many times.
You know.
Yeah, I know what's up out there. I had the insight on who was coming back in the day. I said, there's a kid, Sidney Crosby. I've heard about this kid up in Cole Harbor. Maybe I should get credit for that. Call him my shot that I knew this kid was coming and he was going to be a
You were the
superstar.
insider. You were the insider back then. You knew.
I was an insider. Sean Monahan will join us here in a moment. I did not have the inside scoop on him signing long-term in Columbus. But he's been in the league now a long time. Like, he's a grizzled veteran, right? With Calgary forever, Montreal a couple of years, Winnipeg at the trade deadline, and now heading down to Columbus. And he's a Toronto guy. I'm guessing he played in the GTHL.
He played for the Mississauga Rebels, and I think did they win the OHL Cup, or he was the MVP, or like he was a really good player and great guy, Sean Monahan.
Great guy. Now,
Yes.
you're saying that because he's on the line watching and listening right now, I'm assuming.
I
Because if
know
he
it.
wasn't, would you sue him? Would you say he's a brutal guy?
I would never.
Not
I would
a fan?
Never. He is an awesome guy, great
All
player,
right.
awesome guy, very well deserving of the new ticket. He said.
Okay, then let's do it. Let's bring him in here from the Columbus Blue Jackets. Good Brampton boy, I believe. Here's Sean Monahan. What's happening, Sean? Oh, can we hear you? Oh, man, we got to get that volume cooking. I don't know if that's on our end. That's probably on our end. Hold on, Doogie,
That's gotta be
Joe
us.
from the Bridge, see if you can figure this out. We got to get him in. Got to get Sean in here. If we have to do it over the phone, we'll do it over the phone. We've had these issues before. I think he was coming out. I don't know. Was he about to chirp one of us? Possibly. Or maybe he was just accepting of what you just said, the accolades you were handing him, that he's a great guy and he's had a really good career. Really, really good career.
Well, and a resurgence, Hayes, right? Like he was traded from Calgary to Montreal, and I believe Calgary had to throw in a first-round pick for Montreal to take him.
Mm-hmm.
He had been so injured and so banged up over the years there in Calgary, and he played that year in Montreal. And I remember they were going back to Calgary to play a game, and he wanted to play that game badly. And shortly after that, like, he was done for the year again. Like, he got hurt again, but he had played really well up to that point. And Montreal decided to bring him back on a one-year deal. It was just under $2 million, and he played really well in Montreal this past year, and Montreal flips him for a first-round pick.
Yeah.
So Montreal got 2 first-round picks for Sean Monahan over 2 years, which is
unreal
wild.
business, man.
Wild.
Unreal. And credit, obviously, to Monahan. Like you said, he had the injury issues. When he broke onto the scene, you know, it was him and Gaudreau. That was the two-pack in Calgary, and they were crushing him, man. And he, he had a point a game back in 18-19, 82-point season. And, this past year he tucks home 26 goals, and now he's back there. I guess you're going to team up with Johnny. Is that the plan? I would guess, right?
I would imagine.
Gaudreau and Monahan cooking again. I don't see why that wouldn't be a thing.
It is interesting where, Columbus has been such a mess over the last 2 years. Like, it's nice. It would be nice for them to have that Monahan kind of stable player down the middle of the ice. You know what you're going to get. There's not a lot of surprises there. And maybe him and Johnny Hockey find a little something, little chemistry
that's
from
the plan.
Calgary days.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you never know what we're going to get when we're doing the FaceTime thing. Should we give it one more crack here? I think we should give it a shot. Here
Let's
he is,
try.
the Columbus Blue Jackets. All around good guy, according to Frankie Corrado, and I'll second that. Sean Monahan. Can you hear us, Sean?
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yes. We're good,
go.
man. We're good.
Thanks
yes.
for the kind words.
Yeah, Frankie's pumping your tires, man. I mean, and he said you were a Mississauga Rebel. Was that the case? Is that who you played for?
Yeah,
In
I
the,
was.
Okay.
I played in Brampton growing up, and then my last couple of years I went to the GTHL and played for the Mississauga Rebels.
Okay. You guys are a pretty good team, I would assume.
Uh, Honestly, we were pretty average, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we had a good ending to, I guess, my minor hockey. I mean, we won that OHL Cup tournament, and yeah, I mean, the rest is history.
Okay.
That's what I was remembering. The OHL Cup they won. There was a couple good Rebels teams. There was the Monahan team, and then there was the Robbie Fabry Rebels team.
Right.
Because the way the GTHL is. It's like Marlies, Junior Canadians every year, but every once in a while there's like a Don Mills or a Mississauga Rebels that sneak in there.
For sure.
Yeah, and you guys obviously managed to make that work. So we were just talking about you heading back to Columbus, or going to Columbus and teaming up again with Johnny Gaudreau. Is that kind of the plan? I mean, obviously it's a great contract and it's a new team, but the fact that Johnny's down there, how helpful is that going to be in terms of your transition?
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, obviously I'm real familiar with Johnny, familiar with their captain and Boone Jenner, and I mean, I've talked to a lot of guys in the team, so I mean, it's I'm real excited to get down there and I mean, join that team and get to know the city.
How different does it feel for you now that you've gotten through a season fully healthy? Like that was the biggest hurdle for you for a long time. How does the body feel, and how nice is that knowing that you're healthy?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm fully healthy, so I mean, you get your confidence back. I mean, when you're injured and playing through things, which I did for a long time, it gets frustrating mentally and obviously draining. So I think it was on me kind of for pushing myself to do that. But yeah, I mean, I've taken care of myself. I'm back back to 100%, and I mean, looking forward to a big season here.
How big of a role did like Marty St. Louis play in that? You getting comfortable in Montreal, you getting healthy again, and then him putting you in a position there where you could put up numbers again, and people around the league could realize, all right, that's the Sean Monahan we're used to seeing.
Yeah, no, I mean, Marty's a great coach, and I think, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to play well to earn ice time and be given that opportunity. So I was playing with some great players. I mean, got back to my spot on the power play where I was comfortable, and I mean, started feeling my game again. So I mean, when you're going into games with confidence, I mean, at this level, usually good things happen. And I mean, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by some great teammates, coaches, and obviously some great people.
How cool was that atmosphere in Winnipeg in the playoffs? You know, with all the fans, the whiteout. Have you experienced anything quite like that as far as volume in a hockey arena?
Yeah, no, that was up there for sure. That was a lot of fun. I mean, you go out there, game one, you get the chills. So it's something I'll never forget. I really appreciated my time in Winnipeg. Great fans, great hockey market. So it was a lot of fun to play there, and I thank them for everything they did.
With Sean Monahan, and we've talked about you growing up playing in Brampton and then Mississauga, and then you were in Ottawa in the O, and then it's Calgary, Montreal, Winnipeg. So no college, no American teams. You're going to Columbus. You're going to the States for the first time. What are you kind of excited about more than anything in terms of, I guess, a bit of a different lifestyle, and you're living in a different country for the first time?
Yeah, it's going to be different for sure. I mean, we just had our first baby, and he's 6 weeks now. And I mean, I've heard nothing about great things about Columbus for raising a family, and it's a slower pace of life. Obviously, it's in the East. I was in the West for 10 and a half years, and I mean, closer to home for family. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I've never really been in the States, and it's my first time. I don't really know what to expect. But it's something that me and my family are really looking forward to.
So what's the sales pitch from the Columbus Blue Jackets? Obviously a team the last couple of years that has, failed to kind of get things going in the right direction. They bring you in a veteran guy. I think they know what they're going to get on a night-to-night basis. How did they kind of get you there aside from the money and the contract?
Yeah, no, I think I weighed all my options, and I think I kind of put myself in a decent position to pick a team. And I mean, talking to their GM, he's done a good job building teams in the past, and I like where his mind's at. So I mean, he wants to make the team as competitive as possible right away. Obviously some great young players, and on the team already, and I mean, just drafted that Caden Lindstrom. So I think it's an exciting time. There's a mix of some great veterans that obviously are motivated to help turn it around too. So it's a good opportunity for us, and yeah, I mean, also being in the East was a big factor for me. I mean, my family's closer. It's drivable, and yeah, a great city, like I said, to raise a family.
Yeah, the Buckeyes, everything's Buckeyes down there. Are you a college football guy? Has anyone told you got to get to a game? What's your plan in terms of the Buckeyes?
Yeah, no, I've heard about it for sure. I mean, to be honest, I'm more NFL, but I'm sure I'm going to be jumping on the bandwagon once I get down there.
Okay.
Who's your NFL team?
I love the Bengals.
Oh, so that's it. I think it might be a Bengals town down there. That's like, I don't know if it's Browns or Bengals. Do you know that?
I'm not sure. I would assume Browns, but yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure yet.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to getting down there and experience it all.
Yeah, if it's Browns, you might want to keep that to yourself. You're Bengals fans, but either way, you're in tight. I mean, that is football country for sure. So that's going to be fun. And congrats. I mean, congrats on obviously getting the deal done, and good luck down in Columbus. We're looking forward to tracking you down there. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the kind words there, Frankie.
See you, buddy.
There it is.
Yeah,
Sean Monahan. Good seeing you. Sean Monahan of the Mississauga Rebels. Very average Mississauga Rebels team back in the day.
But they just win OHL Cups, I guess.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
that's what we were talking about yesterday. Guys, outside of the borders of the Greater Toronto Hockey League, where you got to a point where he's like, I got to get out of Brampton. I'm going to play in Toronto.
Do you know how hard it probably would have been for him to get his release? To get out? Do you remember that in minor hockey? Like if you were in a center?
I lived in Toronto. Like I was
in Toronto.
Yeah, so I played in the Metro Toronto Hockey League forever, and I never had to worry about that. But I had teammates that were going through that all the time. Like they had to pitch to Hockey Canada, they had to pitch to the GTHL, they had to pitch to
guys would
the
move.
OMHL
guys would say like, go live with grandma in Toronto so you can play for the Young Nationals because we live in Oakville, and they would give us our release.
Like Gretzky did that. Gretzky lived with a family in Toronto to play for the Young Nats when he was 14.
Yeah.
Like he obviously was supposed to play in Brantford, and he came in. I'm sure he played years up. I would guess he played a year or two up. But Gretzky did that. I don't know if the Lindroses are from Toronto or from London, I think, and maybe they came up and started doing that.
I'm not sure. But
yeah, anyway.
It happens a lot.
Happened a lot in the past. And even more so when there were less teams. Like when I first got in, there were only 6 or 8 teams, I think, in the city.
Well, there's 12, and like the AAA loop would have 12 now.
Yeah.
Which means there's like 4. There's like 4 that don't win any games. They just get crushed every night.
Hammered.
You know what happens?
By the Marlies and
those 4 teams play like a little best of the worst playoff.
Good for them.
I think it's called the King Clancy, maybe.
Okay.
It's like they play their own little playoff, and you get to be crowned the best of the worst. I can't remember what it's called, but I'm pretty sure they do that.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty sure I made the playoffs every year, not to humble brag.
No big deal.
Look at me, the insider, talking about making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks to Sean Monahan. We appreciate it. Kevin Kilbane coming up. And we've also got Richard Griffin on the Jays losing today, what Vladdy had to say about his future here. And the TSN Top 50 audit, we'll do that next. All right, Kevin Kilbane coming up. Full-blown panic in the province because it sounds like the LCBO is going to be closed. And I guess the union and the province, not hopeful a deal will be reached in time. So
when's that happening?
I think tomorrow. Yeah, I think tomorrow. So take that into consideration. That's all I'm going to say. Take that into consideration. You take that whichever way you choose. 6 Busch Light,
6 Bud Light, and I love them, tall boys.
That guy is currently standing in line somewhere downtown Hamilton.
Right. Yeah. He's going to every LCBO as if it's an ATM machine, not realizing you could just, buy a lot at one spot. But he's thinking, I need to sprinkle everywhere I can just to make sure I've got all my bases covered. Yeah, Rick Bushwood is 100% at an LCBO right now.
He may have just already been there and then heard the news and doubled back and said, I guess I gotta turn back and get stocked up for a few more weeks.
Yeah, that guy's got a rude awakening because you're right. I don't think he knows what the hell's going on. He'll show up tomorrow and it'll be closed, and then that'll be panic-inducing, right? Like the guy gearing up, big weekend, you got something cooking, bachelor weekend, we're going up north. Someone hit the liquor store.
Rick Bushwood, that guy knows what's happening at the LCBO.
Yeah, you're probably
sniffing right. There's no way this catches Rick Bushwood by surprise.
You're right.
He's all over it.
My apologies.
It catches the casual person by surprise. The guy who's got the wife sent him out this weekend like, hey, go get stocked up for the weekend, honey. Mm-hmm. And he pushes it off, and then he realizes tomorrow it's shut down, and then he's in one at home. He's in so much trouble.
My apologies. You're right. All right, you want to do a quick either arrow up, arrow down, or arrow the same in terms of the TSN top 50 audit?
We have to.
All right, so this is last year's top 50. So in September, I think there's 12 or 14 of us at TSN, a bunch of insiders like myself, who we project the top 50 players in the NHL that season. And naturally, McDavid finishes first every single year. I think we can both say the arrow is just going to stay flat for McDavid, right? Like we've got McDavid at number 1. But let's go through the list, and you tell me if this guy will either go up the list, down the list, or stay where he is going into next season. All right?
Okay.
So McDavid we have staying at number 1. Leon Draisaitl at 2.
Red arrow down for Leon Draisaitl.
I agree. Red arrow down for Leon Draisaitl. Okay. Nathan MacKinnon, number 3.
That will be getting a green arrow up from yours truly. How does that sound?
Okay, so he's at number 2 for you. You've got McDavid 1, MacKinnon 2. I'm going to agree with that. I mean, considering the season he just had, he's in his prime. He's in his wheelhouse. I don't see why he would slow down. Rantanen's still going to be there. I'm curious about how that team's going to play out. Like, is Landeskog going to return? What do they do with Nichushkin?
I don't know about Landeskog, man. Like that sounds grimy. That knee issue he's dealing with.
I agree. It kind of sounds like Hawk and Paw-esque, if you know what I'm saying. I'm going MacKinnon, green arrow, north. Cale Makar, where does he go? He's number 4 on last year's list. Where does he go?
This is one where, as a former defenseman, I want to get a D-man in the top 5. So I'm going to say, even though Hughes won the Norris, I'm right here with Cale Makar. I need a defenseman in the top 5, and he still will be my top guy.
I'm going to go green arrow. I'm going up. I'm moving him up 1 spot. He's at 4. I think he's in the top 3. That's where I had him last year. I'm going to continue to do that this year. I think I did McDavid, Draisaitl, Makar, or McDavid, MacKinnon, Makar. But I think Makar he's that good. I think he deserves that level of respect. I don't think anyone's in the position to pass McDavid, but I wouldn't be surprised if Makar this time next year we said, wow, that guy had the second best season, or was the second best player. So I'm actually going to go arrow north for Makar. I have him moving up from 4 into the top 3.
Very reasonable.
Very reasonable. Austin Matthews was at 5 on the list last year. Does he go up, down, or stay the same?
I'm going to have Austin Matthews. Okay, so let's say I have McDavid, MacKinnon. I'm going to have Draisaitl, Makar. So now I guess I would have Matthews at 5. He scored 69 goals. I'm going to put Matthews is going to go down 1 for me. I'm going to give him 1 red arrow down.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to leave him there. And, I think we'll get to Kucherov. I'm sure we'll get to, Pasternak and Quinn Hughes. And Hellebuck's got to be on this list somewhere. But Matthews, to me, at 26, the year he had last year, Stamkos leaving Florida, I just feel like Matthews is going to continue to be a top 5 player. So I'm going to leave him right where he is. I don't think he's going up. I don't think he's going down. I think 5 is an appropriate number, which means I would have McDavid 1, MacKinnon 2, Makar 3, Draisaitl 4, Matthews 5. Draisaitl on a contract year too. Pretty intriguing. All right, this list, we had Matthew Tkachuk at number 6 last year. TSN audit moving into next season's projection. Up, down, or the same?
Love Matthew Tkachuk, but it's going to be a red arrow down.
Yeah.
And that's where... I don't know. Kucherov's going to be in that 5-6 vicinity. He was at 8 last year. He's going to move up a couple spots. Tkachuk, red arrow down.
I agree with that. Tkachuk going down. What about Pasternak at 7?
I think he's right around there. Like it's 7, 8. He's right in the wheelhouse.
Okay. I would agree with that. I think that's an appropriate spot. And Kucherov, you have him moving up, I'm sure.
Green arrow coming up for sure.
I would agree with that. I don't think Tkachuk will be in the top 10, which is interesting because they just won the Cup. And he had a really good second half. His numbers were really good. But I think Kucherov in the 6th spot, Pasternak 7.
Sasha
Jack
Barkov.
Hughes at 9. Who do you think? Which Hughes brother will be higher on the list next year?
I will have probably Quinn Hughes higher, just because I'm going to be biased towards defensemen. But I'm going to have Sasha Barkov in and around that 7 to 9 range.
Okay,
maybe somewhere around there. I will have Sasha
too.
Barkov this year.
Me too. And I think Quinn Hughes will get into the, if not top 10, top 12 for sure. And I think he'll be higher on the list than Jack. But I'm not sleeping on Jack Hughes. I think Sheldon Keefe he's a whisperer when it comes to young talent. They've got a better defense, a better goaltender, better goaltenders this year. I think Jack Hughes is poised for a big. He ran into injuries. Remember his start? He had 20 points in 7 games or something.
Buzzing.
He was flying and he got hurt, and their whole season just fell apart. All right, more on this. We'll keep auditing as we move forward because I'm seeing names like Jason Robertson and Kaprizov and Sid, Mitch Marner on the list, Tage Thompson, a number of guys who we thought would have big years, and a lot of them did, but will they continue to have big years into the future?
Erik Karlsson.
Erik Karlsson. Karlsson, I'll bet you won't even be in the top 50. No. I don't think he will be. But anyway, we'll see. So. We'll get into it next hour. Kevin Kilbane coming up, Richard Griffin on the Jays. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.